Okay, the last one I want to talk to you about, almost right on time here, is virtual video over the internet. Now, we all have had video conferencing. And you know, you go to the conference room, and you're supposed to be there at 10 o'clock for the meeting. You show up a few minutes before, you're very dedicated. And you sit there till what, about 10:15 until they get all that stuff hooked up so it actually works. So I don't know why that technology hasn't been perfected, but it's also very expensive. It's point to point. It's from your high-priced boardroom to somebody else's high-priced boardroom. And today the technology, as we've already heard this morning, supports that same kind of stuff over the internet. And another technology which is complementary to the webcast that we heard about this morning is this one, which is focusing more on the video itself. So there's two versions of it. One is when you're just having small conferences of folks, in this case 1 to 4 person video conferencing with the file sharing. So that's a little system you can buy. Here's the camera, so that's not a very high price thing. And then there's also where just people taking, this is a little blurry, sorry I had to enlarge the picture, it's a little blurry, but you just get the point. Here, it's at your desktop, there's a little video cam here, and that's what you see when you're at home or wherever you are taking this particular virtual class. And the virtual class, and I think you'll be able to see this picture here when I emphasize a few points. Here's the instructor who always habitates that little corner up there, or the chairman of the board, or whoever's leading the conference. Here's the people who are attending. Not all the people who are attending. It just happens to be those 2 or 3 who want to speak up and say something. So these are 3 students out of 15 or 20 students that might be in the class. If the 3 of them are having a chat with me as the instructor, I press the button and they're up there on the screen. So they're getting to know each other, which is very important. One of the things that people always say to me that are these Neanderthals that believe that face-to-face is the only way to teach, but you're going to lose the richness of the interaction amongst the students. And I firmly believe the interaction amongst the students is very important. Well, now with video where they get to see each other, it's getting closer to having that interaction. So here's the instructor, here's the students, but not all of them, just whichever ones happen to be asking the instructor a question, whichever ones happen to be arguing with each other at the time. Other things on the screen, this is the display panel, which is your PowerPoint slides, your Word doc, or whatever it is that you're teaching about. And then over here is some of the administrative stuff. They have a little check on the side. They can type in text messaging and some administration. So that's what I consider to be the next stage in classrooms, virtual classrooms. And very inexpensive. We all know WebEx, 10 to 20 seats cost you $10,000 to $20,000 a year. This one has 2 variations, a boardroom setup, which is just buying a bunch of equipment and a license, and that's that dual monitor one with a sophisticated camera, tilt zoom camera, and all that kind of stuff. Or you just get buy licenses for users at those kinds of prices. And so for $10,000 to $20,000 a year, you could hold regular virtual workshops for about 20 plus students for the same price we used to do with WebEx. Who wouldn't continue to move in this technology direction we're moving in? Anybody in training needs to know about these things, and that's why we're here this morning. To take the hype out of it, show you what the real things are, show you some of the costs associated with them, and say to you, if you're still teaching face-to-face in the classroom, boo, shame on you. I'm not saying there isn't a purpose for that in some cases, but if you aren't opening your eyes to some of this advanced stuff, it's all quite affordable, but it takes you from being just a person, I hear a lot, I say this to people, you know what the face-to-face instructors are? They're the ones who want to be actors but never made it in Hollywood. It gives them a chance to be in the front of the classroom, tell their jokes, do all that stuff, and it's a captured audience. But beyond that, if you want to do more for your students than just be the actor up in front of the class, these technologies are here. It's beyond the hype. And I think that's my last slide, and it's time for us to... Go ahead. 20 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm supposed to take 20. I'm sorry. I apologize for the 10 seconds. We just have a few moments to ask some questions of the instructors or presenters that are still here. George is here. Mara is over there. Don is there. Oh, I'm sorry. Over here. Just a few moments, then we'll go to lunch. So if you can hold onto your growling stomach and have a few questions, we'll entertain them for as long as you have questions. Any questions? We have dumped an awful lot on you, and I gave you a chance to ask some questions of each presenter when we went through it, so maybe that exhausted you, drained you dry, or maybe you're just wanting to get the lunch. Yes, thank you very much for that. George. George is
in your cycle, you talk about the subject matter expert was teaching the tournament agent, and then you had a couple of those, and then you had a place where it was actually doing tutoring, and then you had something that was actually interactive. I'm not exactly sure what was happening there, but you talked about it learning further, and I was wondering if it was going to be getting further, or was it learning about the student further? Because
Yeah,
it's like it's assisting.
right. So it's about both actually. So you have an assistant, and now it helps you solve your problems, collaborate with others, and in this process it learns both common knowledge, but also learns about you, so that it could become a more personalized assistant.
Bring you coffee and all that stuff? Thank you for your question. That's a complex question. You're going to get access to all of these slides. And there's some white papers you've created, George, in the past. We could make those available as well. And those go into a little more, of course, you can always call George up and check. Any of us here are freely available to give us a call and have a chat. Any other questions? So, one of the reasons I'm in knowledge management is I like to feel like I changed the world just a little bit. And I had a situation fairly recently that takes two of these technologies, so I'm going to close them. There's no more questions, I got another minute to go. I'm going to close on this little example. In one of my classes that deals with this upcoming bird flu pandemic, many of you haven't even heard about it, haven't heard about it. It's not a question of if, it's just when. When that thing hits, it's going to be horrible, but I'm not going to get into the statistics of it. I'm just going to tell you it's going to be horrible, and there could be tens of millions of lives lost in the United States, and untold billions and billions of dollars of damage to our economy. One of the things we toyed with in the week when we're closing up the classroom, this is a training program on knowledge management, was what can we do for you folks who are responsible, or part of your responsibility is this bird flu pandemic. And we came up with an idea that talks about two of the technologies you've heard about today. So I want to make these technologies a little real to you by giving this closing example. When the bird flu pandemic hits, there's going to be people in the fire department, in the firehouses, in the police stations, in the emergency response, in the small hospitals, and 8 or 10 or 15 others that are going to be wiped out. I don't mean wiped out literally, but they're going to be so deluged with problems, and they've never communicated with each other before, it's going to make a big difference if they respond correctly or not. So here's a process. Let's create a little simulation of what's going to happen when the bird flu pandemic hits for you in the firehouse. You're a fire person, firewoman, firefighter, that's the correct term. That's gender neutral. You're a firefighter in the firehouse. I give you this little simulation and say, oh, that's a bunch of crap. That's nothing real. There's no reality to that. That's hardly anything like what goes on in the firehouse, even with this pandemic thing. And so I say, well, okay, tell me, what's wrong with it? So you give me back some expert opinions as to how it can be made more accurate. And what am I doing? I'm sitting here with my little learning agent on the side. I'm taking all that stuff you give me and putting it into the learning agent. I'm also changing my simulation, making it a little bit more powerful. And I give it to the next firehouse. There's 6,000 or 8,000 of them in the United States. So you're firehouse number 2, firefighter number 2. And I give it to you, and you say, that's, needs a little work. And you give me some feedback. I enter it into the learning agent, and I improve the simulation. Maybe by the 4th or 5th or 10th firehouse, because money's no object here. Think about the implication if we don't solve this problem. What is our usual response to these things like Katrina? Well, the plans were on the shelf, right? Why didn't the police and the fire department communicate? All they needed to do was find where those plans were. They might have been buried underwater by that time. But if you could just find the plans and read them on that morning, you'd have, well, we know what happens, calamity. So I have over a period of, maybe it took me 2 or 3 months. By the time I'm at my 5th or 6th firehouse, I have a pretty good simulation. I'm doing the same thing for the police department in the small hospitals that are using emergency responders in the small hospitals. And now I have about 10 simulations that are really accurate, really descriptive, really kind of blow your mind and say, hey, when this thing hits, what was the expression used there? Shift happens? Shift. Yeah, there's another expression sort of like that too, but I won't use it because somebody once said I was potty mouth. That was in some foreign country. So I won't use the exact expression. But at the end of this exercise, we have 2 products. A very realistic simulation of what it's going to be like in the firehouse, in the police station, in the small hospital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's going to be mandated that every fireman take this simulation over the next 6 months or a year. We want you to take it to have some sense of how bad this situation is going to be when it finally hits. And then what happens when it hits? The learning agent is on It's in every single firehouse, in every single police station, and it's a different learning agent. The learning agent that deals with firemen is different than the learning agent that deals with police stations, small hospitals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These technologies are really powerful. Hopefully that little example gives you a sense for what we could do if we start to use some things that are right at our fingertips. And small problems or large problems, not every one of you in your own business has the problem of the bird flu pandemic to worry about and can see tens of millions of lives being saved, but you can do substantial things for the people in your own organization and you can capitalize on some of these technologies. So get out of the classroom, get into some of these things, and this morning our objective was to give you a taste for them, and we thank you for your attention. Go enjoy your lunch. Thank you.